Your crazy uncle has told you stories about it. The names are all nicknames. He hate me. You remember those days. I don't. I was a little too young for it. But at one point in time, Vince McMahon, the CEO and founder of the World Wrestling Entertainment Company, ventured into football, American football, and failed mightily. And on this episode, and throughout this season, I will be bringing you XFL coverage every Saturday, previewing the games, talking about what happened the week before, and getting you geared up for all of the spring football matchups. So this is the Chris Rennie Show, and I'd like to thank you for coming to my XFL Weekend special. I can't do this anymore. What's this guy saying? Who gave these national radio hosts these jobs? Jeez. Can't even understand that guy. What's he even talking about? I can't take it anymore. Those national media personalities making you feel like that. Make a change. Listen to this idiot about the sports that matter from the opinion that matters. Haha, you said it, not me. Now for today's takes from the most opinionated host in sports talk. He hates me, the XFL. Yeah. We all remember seeing those crazy videos of the XFL. Those were something, when my aunt and my uncle and my cousins and my dad said that there was a league when I was younger that was like the WWE. Every single part of me wanted to participate in that league. They had the running starts, the duel over the football where they ran and hit each other and whoever ended up with the ball won. They had cool nicknames. I don't know if the games were fixed or rigged, but it was an electric atmosphere. The XFL was, and it failed. It went up into a blaze of glory, absolutely. So, what's going to be different this time around? So, to start this off, Vince McMahon has taken steps that he did not the first time. He brought in Oliver Luck, the father of Andrew Luck, the former athletic director of West Virginia. He's been the commissioner of upstart football leagues before. And he understands what it will take to not only be a successful league, but be a league that survives and gets its own fabric into the American football society. So what benefits can this XFL add before we start getting into the nooks and crannies, previewing it, the XFL schedule for the weekend? So, when you look at the XFL, they've made some rule changes, and it feels like to me reading through them, which I'm going to read through them to all of you, it feels like they're integrating parts from the Canadian Football League, from the college football leagues of America, and the NFL, all of which are great in their own right. And I think the XFL is going to create some niche aspects of their game that not only improve upon what football is, but make some interesting, fun experiences. And now, I know a lot of people are going to go into the games and see their first three-point attempt conversion from the 10-yard line and think this isn't football. But that's the point. It is football. It's a different kind of football, and that's what excites me about the league. So, when you get a professional like Andrew Luck, who's made these changes, these sweeping changes, there are going to be differences. So, reading through what Andrew Luck talked about in his presser, his preseason presser, he has talked about the idea of having football reimagined. Player safety, family-friendly environment, fewer stoppages, greater rhythm, greater flow. So when you look back at those high-octane, up-tempo offenses from the Big 12, and you see the NFL with their next-level coaching, you're sort of going to get a combination of both. And that's what excites me about it. Luck indicated a mantra of the new league. That mantra is less stall, more ball. So it's about less commercials, more excitement, creating fun within the rules, and keeping players safe. So Vince McMahon's going to bring the fun. He's going to bring the energy. He's absolutely going to bring a realness to this that wouldn't be there without his financial backing. Similar to like the AAF or whatever it was, the AAFL, the American Alliance of Football League, the Spring League over on the West Coast. There's a bunch of different little developmental leagues that are sprouting up throughout football. None of them have a billionaire backer like Vince McMahon. None of them have someone with the business acumen of Vince McMahon, and none of them have failed at this once like Vince McMahon. So when you think about what can make this league great, they have the financial backing that these other leagues did not. They have fun, innovative ideas for what football can become. They're in reasonably sized markets that have nothing going on in the spring. You know, when you look at most of them, I think when you look at 6 of the 8 of them, they're smaller markets that can get a football following pretty instantaneously. So when you look at all the XFL teams, you've got the Seattle Dragons, the DC Defenders, the LA Wildcats, the Houston Roughnecks, the Tampa Bay Vipers, the St. Louis Battlehawks, and the Dallas Renegades. All of which already have NFL professional teams, which means there's always going to be an interest in football, you know. And in the springtime, football states like Florida and Texas, they want more. Seattle doesn't have a basketball team anymore. Washington, D.C. has the Wizards. Houston has the Rockets, so that's interesting, but it gives you another avenue of entertainment on the weekends. TV-wise, as a football junkie, I will be tuning in to see some of these games, absolutely. There's a reason I want to do this show. It is because I want to talk about more football so I can get better talking about football. So you look at what this league provides. It provides a national schedule with teams from all over the country. You've got the Southeast represented, the Midwest represented, Texas represented twice. You've got Los Angeles represented. You've got the Northwest represented. You know, you've got the East Coast represented. It's represented everywhere. And this time you have a full TV deal with ABC and Fox. So all the games are going to be on national television. That is huge for a league starting. When you looked at the AAFL, a lot of those games were televised on CBS Sports Network, which does not come with every basic cable package. And it does not come with a lot of the streaming packages you can buy. Where the XFL has grown immensely in the past few months is they're getting players that are popular in the area that they were popular. On the East Coast, you know, it's exciting to have Cardell Jones in Washington, D.C. I love Cardell Jones. A lot of people don't know who Cardell Jones is, but he's an Ohio State quarterback. Jordan Teamu's is starting quarterback in the XFL. He was very talented. Landry Jones was a very talented college quarterback at Oklahoma from the Texas area. And he is playing for Bob Stoops, the former Oklahoma coach. So the more you look into the people they brought in real people, not made-up, nicknamed people. They brought in these stars from that first upstart league, the AAFL, and they have financial backing. So when you start looking at these aspects, a lot of it makes sense. And now, what else can you bring? So when you look at the rosters of these teams, let's look through some of these teams' rosters. You know, let's start with who I already mentioned, the Washington Defenders. The Washington Defenders are in the Washington, D.C. area, obviously, the D.C. Defenders. So when you look at their roster and when you look at their depth chart, you've got guys who are pretty big names at their respective former schools. You've got Cardell Jones, former Ohio State quarterback. You've got DeAndre Tompkins, former Penn State receiver. You've got Tyree Jackson, former Buffalo quarterback. You've got Eli Rogers. You've got people that not everyone has heard of, But you've got people that are going to can be stars in their own right, big personalities, absolutely. Tracy Sprinkle at defensive end. He is a former Ohio State player. That is a huge move, getting a blue blood college football programs player on your team. When you look through that list even more, you see names that you're going to remember. Remember Matt Elam from Florida? Yes, he was a very good player. They're already having fun. The DC Defenders are an example of what can be. You get blue blood, former college football players, and you're going to get a natural following. Every single Ohio State fan I know is going to tune into the XFL game to watch their former national champion quarterback Cardale Jones play. That is facts. That's the truth. So take that for what that's worth. All right. When you schedule the game, there is no bye weeks. The games are going to be a lot faster pace, so you're not going to lose time watching these games. All right. So now that we've sort of talked about why this league can make it and why it's different than the original inaugural XFL, let's take a look at the new rules that are going to make this league a special league. So when you look at the new rules in the XFL, let's think about this. We're going to start with kickoffs. So kickoffs in the NFL are designed to start the game. So on a kickoff in the XFL, the ball will be kicked from their own 30-yard line, the team's kicking's own 30-yard line. But every blocker will be lined up on the opposing team's 35-yard line. The return team blockers will be lined up at their own 30-yard line, just 5 yards away. Only the kicker and receiver can move before the ball is caught. All other blockers are permitted to move when the ball is caught or 3 seconds after it hits the ground if the ball isn't caught. Kicks that fly out of bounds or kicks that fall short of the opposing 20-yard line will result in the receiving team taking the ball at their own 45. Touchbacks will result in the receiving team starting at their own 35-yard line. Teams will be required to inform an official if they plan to use an onside kick. So that means there's not going to be any of those fun little tap surprise onside kicks, which is not fun. But when you think about that rule, so the people running down on kickoff are no longer running down. They are starting 5 yards away from the blockers. And what's that mean? 30 yards away from the returner? So the high-speed collisions aren't going to happen, and you're going to be way more likely to kick the ball to the returner. That is a huge aspect of the game. It's going to make it very exciting. You're also punished for touchbacks by giving the ball the other team the ball at the 35. And if you kick the ball out of bounds, they get it at the 45, very similar to the NFL. So how is that going to work? It's going to be a lot of fun. To me, that is what the NFL needed. And when Oliver Luck talked about increasing player safety, I think the lack of running start really does that. So what else is going to make this game feel different to us and make it interesting enough to continue watching it? So punts have also changed. Once again, the punts that result in touchbacks are going to come to the 35-yard line, and the punting team can't cross the line of scrimmage before the ball's punted. So that makes it so the punt returner has more inclination to return it, and then it makes it more of a traditional kickoff. I think this is going to be a little bit more high octane, get the fun back into the game. It's also going to make teams not want to punt as much. When you don't get that running start as a punt team, you really have no advantage punting it. The return is probably going to get brought to that, and it's going to be interesting seeing the strategies employed by teams to get the return. So now that that's talked about, and now that we've talked about the punt returns and how you're going to see a lot more punts returned and a lot more fourth down conversion attempts. So yes, that is going to be awesome. So challenges, there's not going to be any coaches challenges in the XFL. XFL's rules on the challenges are all going to be made through a replay official. So all plays involving possession, involving touching of either the ball or the ground, plays governed by the goal line, plays governed by the boundary lines, plays governed by the line of scrimmage, plays governed by the line to gain, number of players on the field at the snap, game administration, penalty enforcement, proper down, spot of a foul, status of the game clock, disqualification of a player. This list of reviewable plays is identical to those in the NFL prior to 2019. So keep it simple, stupid. No coaches' challenges. Every play is definitively put in, and the rules will be put into place. So if the refs get it right, there will be no need for a review, and that's why it's awesome to have the replay official. But when there's question, the replay official has the ability to call it down no matter what. So there's not going to be any of that arbitrary no replay if the coach doesn't throw the challenge flag. That's not going to happen anymore. So that is also a very exciting aspect of the game. It's also going to keep the pace of play moving because you won't have coaches slowing down the game. You won't have coaches taking that extra time out to try to get a booth review. The booth will signal it down when there is a questionable play. I think this is going to work extremely well. So the overtime format is going to be like a soccer shootout. It's going to be 2-point conversions from the 5-yard line. That means going back and forth. This was also integrated into the college football overtime. After a 5th overtime, each team goes for 2 until one team stops the other. With each conversion being worth 2 points in this league, obviously for it being a 2-point conversion, the team with the most points at the end of the shootout is a winner. So if one team clinches a win early, like in hockey or soccer or any sport that does a shootout, the game will be over. So once you go up by 2 and stop a team and get out of reach within the 5 shootouts, then the game will be concluded. So the timing rules, the game is going to be a running clock outside of the final 2 minutes of the second quarter and the final 2 minutes of the fourth quarter. That is very straightforward in a lot of leagues and a lot of sports that are in intramurals, that are in any sort of league that's running up against a tight time window. So once the ball is spotted, the 25-second play clock will start, and that is a big part. So the other aspect of time is timeouts. Each team will receive 2 timeouts per half compared to 3 in the NFL. The halftime break is going to be 10 minutes long. Penalties. So there is no ineligible player. No ineligible player shall be or have been more than 3 yards beyond the line of scrimmage until a passer throws a legal forward pass that crosses the line of scrimmage. A player is in violation of this rule if any part of his body is beyond the 3-yard limit. So, yes, there's going to be, that changes it, and it's very honestly written pretty strictly. So those RPOs and stuff might not be the same, or the blocking schemes on those RPOs are going to be a little different. I want to see how well that rule is actually regulated. So the rules are going to be interesting. It's going to feel different. The kickoffs, the punts, the amount of 4th down attempts, the amount of 2-point conversions, the 3-point conversion can get real interesting at the end of the game. Say your team's down 9 points, you've got a shot. Way later into the game, I think stopping the clock in the last 2 minutes is way smarter than having it run. I think you're going to see a lot of great football in this league. So, game previews. Let's get into this. Let's look at let's see some game previews. So, a lot of the teams have taken, you look at the game previews of what is going to happen. There are 8 teams and a 9th scout team. So around the XFL, we're going to get set for week 1 with the XFL.com website. So let's look for the quarterbacks. So you've got Aaron Murray from Georgia, you've got Cardale Jones, and you've got Brandon Silvers, the 1-star from the AAFL. So when you look at all the quarterbacks in the league, it's going to be quite a bit of fun. So we'll get into the Los Angeles Wildcats versus the Houston Roughnecks. And that is at TD ECU Stadium in Houston. When you look at the preview on the website, that will give you roster information, all that stuff. So the head coach for the Los Angeles team is Winston Moss. He's got 20 years of coaching experience and 12 years as an associate head coach in the NFL. He was a guy who was getting tired of just sitting around as an associate head coach, and has been part of Super Bowl winning teams. So he got his first head coaching gig in the XFL, which is really awesome for him. And June Jones, if you don't know who June Jones is, go look up your football history. If you watch a college football offense today, there are principles that were founded by June Jones. He has 22 years of experience as a head coach, and he is the winningest head coach in Hawaii football history. So the Wildcat starter is Jalen McClendon. McClendon was a quarterback. Where did he play at in college? I think he played at Hawaii, if I remember correctly. But don't quote me on that. We're going to look it up real quick. Baylor, that's where he played. All right. So Jalen McClendon is a former Baylor Bear. He played in a wide-open passing offense in college, and that is what probably attracted him to L.A. Now, P.J. Walker is the quarterback for the Roughnecks. He played at Temple University. So you've got the kid from Texas coming home to Texas. You've got P.J. Walker, who won the job over Connor Cook, former Michigan State quarterback. What happened to him? Let's see where this goes. The Wildcats have a very large offensive lineman. Sammy Coates, remember him? He was a speedster. I think he went to Kent State. One of the fastest players in the league. He's going to be very explosive. A lot of this is going to be new. It's going to be fun seeing all these coaches from different backgrounds putting their teams against each other. I think this matchup here doesn't even really look into what the players are. I think it's going to be about June Jones's run-and-shoot style working in a professional sports setting versus Winston Moss, a former NFL lifer. You can't build that to a football nerd better than that, to be honest. All right, the next game we're going to look at is the game I am most interested in watching. All right, well, it's the Seattle Dragons versus the DC Defenders. It's 2 p.m. Eastern on ABC at Audi Field in Washington, D.C. So when you look at the preview here, the starting quarterback for the DC Defenders is going to be Cardale Jones. That's my guy. Cardale Jones is my dude. So we got Cardale Jones versus Brandon Silvers. Brandon Silvers is a guy with a big arm. Brandon Silvers was the only player who really made a name for himself in the AAFL. He lit up the league for the Memphis Express. He got signed to the New York Jets' practice squad, and now he has a chance to be a starting quarterback in the NFL. He played for the South Alabama Jaguars. He's got a cannon for an arm. He's got a thick Southern accent, and he also played quarterback at Troy University. So when you see who he was, he's got that Southern drawl. He's a star. Cardale Jones is also a star. So let's keep this rolling. Pep Hamilton's a coach. If you don't know who Pep Hamilton is, he's got 21 years of coaching experience, including NFL roles with the Baltimore Ravens, the New York Jets, the San Francisco 49ers, the Bears, the Colts, and the Browns. He was the assistant head coach for the Browns and the University of Michigan. He was the offensive coordinator for Stanford and the Colts. So, that's Pep Hamilton. And Jim Zorn's a name you should know. 25 years of coaching experience, including 19 as a QB coach and 2 as NFL head coach. He was a head coach for the Washington Redskins from 2008 to 2009. He was a former quarterback. He was named the AFC Offensive Rookie of the Year in 1976, and he is a football lifer. So you've got 2 really good quarterback developers on 2 guys who had NFL experience in their back pocket with Brandon Silvers and Cardale Jones. So I think this is going to be the first real quarterback duel of the XFL, and I'm excited for it. So Cardale Jones has always had an extremely strong arm, and he has always struggled with being decisive, and that leads to some questionable throws. But I do believe that he is a guy who is going to make a huge impact for this league because of the Ohio State following. More players to watch. Keenan Reynolds, remember that all-timer at Navy, the guy who always just seemed to win football games for them. He's on the Dragons. He's back home in Seattle. Steven Johnson, Linebacker, well, he lifts with the O-line and runs with the DBs. The one-time Bronco was already a defensive leader, super athlete. For the defenders, Rashad Ross, already talked about him. He is a deep threat. He terrorized AAF secondaries, leading the defunct lead-in touchdowns. And Tracy Sprinkle, he's the captain on Ohio State's 2015 championship team, made a couple of NFL stops before making a splash in the AAF with 5 sacks for Atlanta. So both teams are led by quarterback gurus. I already said that. I think when you look at speed on this game, there's extremely good running backs. You've got Donnell Pumphrey on DC. He's the all-time leader in rushing in the NCAA, so there's another star from the NCAA that's going to be making an impact. The next team on the list and the next preview we'll be looking through is the preview of the Tampa Bay Vipers for the New York Guardians. These are two teams I actually really do not know much about. The game will be played in MetLife Stadium. So the Tampa Bay Vipers are going to be led, I'm pretty sure, by Matt McGloin from Penn State at quarterback. And when you look at, Vipers are Aaron Morey and the Guardians are Matt McGloin. So I knew there was two very popular quarterbacks in this game. So the coaches for this are Mark Trestman, former 3-time Grey Cup champion. He's going to be bringing a really interesting mindset when it comes to play calling. He's 85-73 as the head coach, and that includes 2 years with the Bears. He's spent 12 years as an NFL OC, and he had the first NFL scoring offense with the 49ers in 1995, coaching then quarterback Steve Young. That Super Bowl Raiders team in 2002, Mark Trestman was the OC. And the best offense Jay Cutler had for the Bears in 2013 was with Mark Trestman. So he's led top-tier offenses. New York, Kevin Gilbride, 36 years as a coach, including 23 as an OC and 7 as a head coach. He's a 2-time Super Bowl champion as a New York Giants offensive coordinator and has helped develop Warren Moon, big name, and Eli Manning. So when you look at the quarterbacks, Aaron Murray and Matt McGloin are going to be very benefited by the people coaching them, as you can tell by what has made up the league so far. Offensive gurus, quarterback coaches. That's what it's all about. So Aaron Murray, this is what the website says, maybe the league's most refined mobile quarterback. Murray can manage a game effectively from the pocket and improvise when plays break down. I never saw Aaron Murray as an athletic guy. I think they're giving him a lot of credit here, but Murray is a very accurate passer and set very many completion records at Georgia. So now you've got the Guardians, the Northeast, Matt McGloin. He went to Penn State. And Matt McGloin was a guy who no one ever thought was going to be a starter at Penn State. And he is extremely tough. He started for the Raiders. He's a gunslinger. And he is one of those guys who's very neutral in his mindset. So when you look at the players to watch, the website says Jalen Tolliver for the Vipers. Big receiver. A lot of receptions in college. Nick Truesdell, converted receiver. He's a tight end now, 6'5", working his way into an NFL tight end body. And then the Guardians have Ben Heaney, the defensive signal caller with 24 games of NFL experience. And Jaron Jones at left tackle. After starring at defensive line at Notre Dame, Jones transitions to the other side of the ball. If he can slow guys down like him, it should work out fine. You look at two different types of coaches, both offensive minds, both Super Bowl winners, if I remember correctly. And they are both very inclined to employ passing attacks that develop some of the best passers of all time. So the last game I'm previewing, because there is only 4 games, so it's not going to take a lot of your time, is the game between... What the... You stupid son of a gun. Is the game between... Here we go. The St. Louis Battlehawks and the Dallas Renegades. So, when you look at this full preview, here, this is the final one. Let's take a look. You've got Bob Stoops coaching the Dallas Renegades. And you've got Jonathan Hayes. So Bob Stoops is a top 25 all-time college football coach. National champions. AP Coaches of the Year. Tons of Rose Bowl wins, Orange Bowl wins, Fiesta Bowl wins. He's the only BCS-era head coach to win the Rose Bowl, Orange Bowl, Fiesta Bowl, and Sugar Bowl. That's impressive. A lot of winning from this guy. Extremely well and offensive-minded. And he's going up against his former protege, Jonathan Hayes, tight end coach, special teams coordinator for Bob Stoops, including the 2000 National Championship team. He's been a tight end coach for 15 years. This is his chance to really lead a team finally. And this gets interesting. The Battlehawks have Jordan Tiamu. Tiamu was an extremely aggressive passer at Ole Miss. He fit really well into that system that Rich Rod was employing and was an extremely awesome quarterback and a team that was very depleted. The Renegades, on the other hand, have Philip Nelson. I have no idea who this guy is. That is amazing. I thought Landry Jones was a lock for it, but he's not. Apparently, he has the accuracy in the short and midfield and confidence inside and outside the pocket to be capable, if not strong, quarterback for the Renegades. So when you look at players to watch, Kenny Robinson, the 21-year-old rookie, has impressed coaches with his range, skills, and athleticism. If you're wondering why a 21-year-old is in the XFL, it's because he can get paid to play football. So Kenny Robinson was a guy, he played at West Virginia. He took the XFL route. It was interesting after the coaching turnover with Dana Holgerson. He left the program after this year. It was a failure for the West Virginia program. We'll just mark that one up as that. And now they've got the first guy who is trying to make the leap from college to the pros through the XFL. So Kristen Michael, the former Texas A&M star and former second-round pick, looks to take advantage of this offensive line from the Battlehawks. The Renegades have Cameron Artis-Payne, who played at Auburn, and Darren Smith, who starred in the AAF. So Landry Jones is not starting because he is injured. I did not know that. But if he's not ready, the Renegades are going to go with Philip Nelson. OC Hal Hooms runs the air raid. Bob Stoops, air raid. Battlehawks coach Jonathan Hayes and OC Chuck Long both served under Stoops. So it's going to be a very similar offensive attack. Very similar programs, very similar mindsets. So those are the previews of the games. I'm going to have a lot more information next week. We're going to see how a lot of these players look in their first games. And I think the talent on each team is going to be pretty equal. So to close this show out, my first XFL Weekend preview, what's going to make the XFL successful? Being different enough to be fun, but being similar enough to football that we know what is going on. You've got very familiar names to football fans, and you've got a lot of interesting dynamics that are going to happen with offensive styles, defensive styles, college coaches, NFL coaches bringing a bunch of different perspectives to the game of football. And with the exciting ideas of the third three-point plays, the two-point plays from the 5, going back to youth football days before you had the goalpost up. This is what it's all about. You know, this is what the XFL is supposed to be. You're going to have people increasing the length of their football playing career. And you're going to have guys finding their first opportunity of professional football and working their way up to their long-term dream. I know the XFL doesn't want to see itself as a developmental league, but at first that's what it's going to have to thrive being. It's going to have to be a league that entertains with stories. It's going to be a league that has to entertain with underdogs because it is an underdog league. All the coaches never got their opportunity to be head coaches at the level they wanted to be, and Bob Stoops got fired for the guy who was under him. He actually stepped down, but you know what that means. And the mix of successful coaches at all levels is going to be so fun to see. The air raids, the run and shoots, the traditional pro-style offenses. You're going to see a lot of former college legends from your prospective favorite schools, and you're going to see a different brand of football. The XFL is going to be successful if it stays true to itself and doesn't try to get too big for its britches early. It's spring football. It's going to be fun. Relying on sports gambling as a key is going to be interesting as well. They got to make a partnership in that world. One of the interesting aspects I saw from an article I read while I was preparing for this show was that the XFL should have spent millions of dollars trying to get Trevor Lawrence. I thought that was asinine. Those guys are not going to play in the XFL. College provides them a much faster way to get to the NFL and provides a level of competition that is better. You don't want to be playing grown men when you're 19 years old. I went to junior college. That's what happens sometimes. So the XFL is going to be successful. That's my prediction, and that's why I want to get on it early. We'll start talking about it now. But anyways, let's enjoy these games. Let's enjoy it for what it is. Football in the spring. Something different. And I think with Oliver Luck and Vince McMahon leading the way, and the coaches they have, the coaches are personalities, the coaches are talented, and we're going to see some former players that we didn't get to see enough of in the NFL trying to get back to that league. The XFL is going to be awesome, and let's go. So XFL 2020, here we come. Starts today.